Before we get into the episode, I just want to say, sorry if you hear a noise. I kind of forgot how long the dryer takes on my laundry, and I might even have to step out. No, I don't think I will. There's an hour on it. Well, we might go over an hour, but I might need to step out at the end so I can get my laundry out so they don't get wrinkly. So sorry about that. I know this is the most professional podcast in all of out there, but it's Labor Day. What can I say? Right? We're recording this
and
on
none
Labor
of us
Day.
are laboring.
None of us are laboring except for my dryer. You know,
Automated. He's doing AI.
He's doing it. But yeah. Anyways, why are we talking about dryers, guys, fellas, boys? We're
Yes.
back. It's back to
Are
just
we?
the three of us. It's been
Thank
a
God.
while since it's been just the three old. What are they?
How long has it been? A little over
2 months.
2.5 months, 3 months. Maybe?
It's been since May. Since
Yeah,
midway
3
through
months.
May, because then I left to Chicago, and then went everywhere, and then you went to Hong Kong, and then I went to Japan, and then we're back, and now we're here. Chris, how was Hong Kong? How'd you like it?
Oh, it was.
You back home.
I loved being back home. Anyone listening who's never been, highly recommend it. Especially if you've never been to Asia, it's a pretty especially if you only speak English, it's a relatively English friendly place. You know, you'll be able to get around fairly easily. I feel like countries like developed countries in Asia, like South Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, a couple of other countries here and there, are very friendly. Philippines is great too. Thailand's awesome. But yeah, I loved being home. It had been 3 years since I last went home to see my family because of COVID, and then this and that, and then just timing, and then here we are now. But yeah, it was a really great time. I loved being home, seeing my friends, my family, and reconnecting with the city. That was a really important thing for me while I was there, and I'm glad I got to do that.
I'm glad you got to go back home, man. Yeah. Well, you know, you're back here. It's sad that you're gonna be gone from home again, but you got home here, Chris.
Uh-huh.
And guess what? Because this is the first episode where Chris and I are recording from the same apartment. We live together. All of everyone on Stacked has lived with one another at one point.
That's true. Yeah.
You know, and then there's 2 eras of Stacked of 2 of us recording from the same locale, and that is this is the new era. There's a new era, you know. Last time was the La Palma era, and then we were all separated, and now we're back in this new era. And then there'll be an even newer era pretty soon. So
We won't
stay
talk
tuned,
about it
everybody. We're not going to really talk about it. We don't like talking about it. We kind of hate talking about it. Just kidding. We want.
Will there be a room?
What?
Will there be a
Will
room?
there be a room? We'll see.
There might be
I don't
a
know.
corner. We'll see.
We'll see. We'll make it work. Don't worry. It's gonna work out just fine. A little elbow grease. It's gonna work out just fine. All right. So because, okay, I also gotta say, welcome back to Stacked episode 117. Look, there's the music, the show intro music. It's 3 minutes late. That's fine. Today's episode, we promised we'd do this right before we all left and went our separate ways for our own little solo adventures. Why does Brandon have a hammer? Okay, put that away. We promised that we would talk about movies produced in Hong Kong. Hong Kong movies. Hong Kong films.
Yay.
In honor of Chris coming back home. I think it's finally time, because this was recommended to us by one of our dear listeners, Alex. Alex, are you listening? You better be. I know where you live, man. I know your letterbox. This one's for you, Alex. All right? That's right. So yeah, Chris, why don't you... Do you want to take the reins of this episode?
Yeah, why not?
Because
feel like it's only fitting.
you are the expert. Out of the 3 of us, Chris is the expert when it comes to these films.
Mhm.
Brandon, you just stick your tongue out like you're on the schoolyard. You went, eh. Shut up, man. Brandon's mad that he's not the expert this time. That's what's getting him.
Ha ha ha.
He's silent. All right,
All
Chris, take it away, man.
Well, why don't we start with Brandon's favorite Hong Kong movie, and it also is my favorite Hong Kong movie. Also, is just my favorite movie.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah. In the Mood for Love by Wong Kar-wai. I think one thing that is important to know about Wong Kar-wai is that in the local life in Hong Kong, he is not all that celebrated. I mean, he's known as a prolific director. People generally like him, but he's not like the end all be all embodiment of Hong Kong cinema, at least among the locals. Ethan, I remember we talked about this phenomena a while ago, and we were talking about like you mentioned in Japan, Kurosawa is kind of in a similar boat in the sense that he is very heavily revered and celebrated, but isn't kind of like isn't the legendary director that I think many of us film people tend to associate him as in the context
Right.
of Japan.
yeah.
And I think Wong Kar-wai kind of falls into that kind of spectrum as well. However, I do think that Wong Kar-wai has earned his reputation very, very well. And I want to talk about this first movie because it is a deeply important movie to me. Many of his films are. It's called In the Mood for Love. I'll just give a quick synopsis on it, and I'll let Brandon take the reins from there. But In the Mood for Love is a story about two couples who live right next to each other in 1960s Hong Kong. And throughout the story, a spouse from each marriage discovers that their own spouses are cheating on them with each other. If that makes sense, that's a lot of ins and outs. But yeah, so there's kind of this like mystery of how did these two get together and why are they cheating and this and that. But the movie does this really beautiful thing of exploring, not so much like going into like the I hate the spouse for doing that, like this and that. Obviously, like yeah, there's a lot of that kind of emotion and there's a lot of somberness that pervades over the film. But more importantly, the film is about these two like lost souls desperately trying to figure out why their spouses would do this to them, while also navigating their own blossoming relationship with one another, which also calls into a lot of questions about their morals of what they're doing and whether or not they feel okay, the surveillance they feel. Brandon, I know this is a movie that you deeply love. I remember recommending this to you many years ago. I was in Hong Kong actually when you watched it, because I think it was over the summer or something.
Yeah.
And I remember opening Letterboxd and seeing your review and just being so happy to see that you really connected with it. So, what's your take on In the Mood for Love?
Well, it's a cut above the average romance tale, I think, because if you think about it, there's like so many different kinds of layers that are going on here. Like you said, it doesn't really, often in cinema, we have a pervading sense of wanting to like judge people and like make accusations that you see it with biopics nowadays about bad people, like the Napoleon biopic. People are like upset online about, it's like about a murderer and a person who took over like a nation. And I'm like, so like, just because they're a bad person or like maybe had some like bad deeds doesn't mean that there isn't a compelling story to tell. And not that the characters in this film necessarily stoop so low, because their honor like essentially avoids them acting upon their necessary urges that their spouses do. But that's what makes it so compelling and beautiful, because there is so much restraint and nuance to both Maggie Chung and Tony Leung's relationship in the film and performances. And I find that really compelling because the film is clothed in like reds and greens, and I noted that in my initial review when I saw it in 2018. And green's like very representative of like jealousy and greed. Yeah. And then red is passion, but like neither character really represents those colors. It's like, but it is the most common colors associated with love. Yeah, and in that way, it is not only a richly characterized, in that it's, but it's richly characterized. It's richly characterized in like the coloring and cinematography. but
Mhm.
also inside the story, in which there's also something to do with, like, I feel like class in the film,
Yeah, absolutely.
and especially a station with the 1960s. That's a very different
Mhm.
time in history, let alone in America as it is in Hong Kong, where, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's somewhat similar in terms of like the social conservative nature, very, but like not the exact same thing. It's
Right,
slightly more
sure, sure.
I feel like it's slightly more westernized and traditional than like mainland China or other countries within the East. But yeah, I
Yeah,
love this movie. It's great.
yeah. Ethan, I know you have also been, you've been getting into Wong Kar-wai these last few years. Notably, you had a deep connection to Chungking Express when you rewatched it. We'll get to that.
Well, should we just
Um,
turn this into like I'll talk about In for the Mood Love,
Wong
but
Kar-wai,
should we just talk
yeah, as a
because
whole,
he is like, to me, he
his
is
movies
like Hong
mesh.
Kong on
Yeah,
film. You know,
yeah,
there's
I get
other
that.
great directors
Yeah,
that I
go
want to
go
talk
for it.
about, but for him, um, well, I not much else to say for In the Mood for Love. You guys perfectly like broke that movie down. I do need to rewatch it. It's been 3 years since I've seen it, and uh, I want to rewatch it and then see 2046.
Yeah,
Like do a
it's
double feature of
sci-fi
that.
sequel, believe it or not.
But I just remember one of the things that I was just the most blown away by was how Wong Kar Wai was able to communicate emotion through color in the film. I don't think I've
Hmm.
ever seen um, really any other filmmaker do it quite like him. Besides, honestly, in like this is a weird comparison, but JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and how they sort of use color to communicate stakes, emotion,
Hmm.
and just like overall thematic elements in the show. I think Wong Kar Wai does a very similar thing in The Mood for Love when like with using such dramatic reds and greens, like you guys were saying. Um,
Yeah.
like it's so dramatically colorful, which just make like sucks you in even more like a magnet. You just get attached to
Hmm.
it. Um, but yeah, it's a good film, but it's not my favorite Wong Kar Wai film, and I wanted to talk about Chungking Express because I think I've come to the conclusion that that is the most romantic movie I've ever seen in my life. I honestly believe so. Like in depicting like feelings of love, I think there's no other film that does that better in all the stages of love. Um,
Hmm.
and just having these two, it's a bifractured narrative. That's what it's called, right? When it's two
Yeah.
different
It,
stories that just they there's just one little transition that turns one story to the other, and it's it's amazing. I remember hating this. We've talked about this film so many times on Stacked recently that I don't feel like I need to go all too much into it. But if you know the story, I didn't like this film at all when I first saw it, and then I rewatched it. Recent, I would say within the last year, in the last like 8 months, I would say I rewatched it,
hmm.
and just life experience made me like really feel for that film, and now it's one of my favorites ever. It went from a movie I just did not like at all to literally in like my top 30 films of all time, or even top 20. I think, I don't know. Um, it's that good.
Yeah.
Brandon,
Uh,
we keep telling you to rewatch this film, but you haven't. Fuck you.
I just I don't really remember enjoying it the first time. I think,
Neither
What
did
did I?
Ethan, though.
Me neither, dude.
I
I enjoyed it less than you.
yeah, I just think there's certain things. It reminds me, honestly, like his works remind me of at times like French New Wave directors.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
he's absolutely influenced by them.
Yeah, and they don't really like to focus on like narratives and themes as much as they like to focus on, I think, stylistic playing with the formula and feelings that
Hmm.
pervade the film. And for me, that's not something that I very easily connect with, narrative
Yeah,
wise. Not that I don't think because like In the Mood for Love, I think is his most straightforward movie that I've seen of the three that I've seen
definitely.
from him.
I mean, of those
So
three, yeah.
that is why I was able to connect with it a little better, because it did feel like a traditional narrative, but also it was a cut above because of his like stylistic execution. It's just
Hmm.
for something I really don't like the dropping frames and slow motion. I hate that. I don't know. I don't like it in the Saw movies, and I don't like it here. So.
I hated it one of the first time I watched. You got it. It's now like it's one of the best things ever. Now it's so crazy.
You say that
about what?
But we have different experiences and different lives.
I know, but we were both educated the same way, so now I understand why those are so fucking cool now.
No, but I understand why they're cool. I just don't think they're like.
I know, but now you gotta watch it again to now that you understand. Now you can actually.
He's begging. He's begging.
I am begging.
His hands and knees.
I bet Emily would love that movie. Brandon. Put her on the mic. I bet she'd love that movie.
Well, actually, Brandon, you bring up a funny talking point because Ethan and I the other day were talking about like our friends and our tastes in films and like what kind of things we tend to gravitate towards here and there with like maybe certain themes we tend to really get into, tones, whatnot. And when we got to talking about you, we both agreed that you have a very like
awful taste.
You're very no. That's him talking. What I was saying was like you.
No, you're a very script.
You're a very script driven person.
Yeah.
And you love your performance script, and I think editing are your favorite tools of a filmmaker.
Yeah, I would agree. I think. If you pace a film well and it has a great script, it doesn't really matter how visually dynamic it looks. I mean, it helps like to have a film that is visually dynamic and has that, but it's not a requirement because a story is a story, And if you find a way to tell that story in a compelling way, I don't know.
No, I feel that too because like I've realized that like Ethan pointed out to me that like I gravitate towards like these. I tend to gravitate towards like melodramatic conventions, so very expressive things like that, Well, anyway, we're kind of on the romance film track right now, and Brandon, I want to bring up a movie with you that I showed you a little while ago. We didn't watch it together, but I did recommend it. Comrades, Almost a Love Story. I love talking about this movie. You watched it in 240p.
What?
Yeah. I don't know. Where did you find this? Was it just some dodgy website?
It was like I think it was like it was either YouTube or Library Archive.
Okay.
And sometimes the transfers on those sites can be pretty awful because we've talked about this on numerous times on the podcast, I think, and in person. Mm-hmm. It's extremely hard to find films in their original native language from the East to rent here. Not just to own or to like stream, like those that's difficult enough, but if I can't even rent a movie or like get it from the library in its original form, it makes it extremely hard to watch it. So I wanted to watch it in the best way intended, and unfortunately I had to watch this film in 240p. So I don't blame you, dude. I'm just glad you got around to see it even a little bit, Ethan, this movie, I actually think you'd quite like this movie. It stars Maggie Cheung and Leon Lai. Leon Lai is the lead in Fallen Angels. That isn't Takeshi. Mm-hmm. They play like this couple who, oh God, how do I explain this? Like they're like opposites.
They're completely opposites. They meet in Hong Kong. One of them is like a newly immigrated person from mainland China, and they form like this unlikely friendship that turns into love and. It has that kind of, what's the word? Like that lightness that you feel with movies like Chungking. You kind of feel like almost like a whimsy. And there's a certain word. It's like you feel like it's breezy, it's light, but it's also like slow and emotional too. Like there's like by the end of this movie, you're kind of like this movie kind of left me feeling the way I did when I saw Past Lives. Towards the end,
I kind of feel that too. Feel that. Gave him the same rating too.
Yeah.
Well, I love the opposites attract story, so I'm in.
Yeah. You might dig this one.
Yeah.
It's not always traditional, but it's good.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah.
That's also a great one. One movie I do want to bring up. Ethan and I watched together recently. Brandon, I would love to lend you this Blu-ray. It's a 4K actually. So a few months ago, I I was just on Amazon. I was looking at movies that like, oh, like maybe I could add to my wish list for like eventually I'd like to buy. I came across this movie that was that's being redistributed by Radiance. It's a 4K restoration of this movie called A Moment of Romance. Um, this movie came out in 1990. It stars Andy Lau, um, and it is. He even said it himself when we were watching. About halfway through the movie, he knew that this would be a 5-star for me,
I know.
and it really did. I fell in love with this movie really quickly. I thought it was just so visceral, but also so emotional and romantic, but also kind of somber and tragic at the same time, which is absolutely my shit. It's set in like the most beautiful time in Hong Kong, in my opinion. Um, yeah, it is such a kick-ass movie. The soundtrack's great. It is a great vibe movie as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fun thing about this movie, it was directed by a director named. One second. It's right here.
What's his name?
By a director named Benny Chan. It's actually the first in a trilogy, but all the trilogy isn't narratively connected. They just have thematic connections. It is beautiful. I really dug it, and the movie is produced by the great Johnny To, which I'm sure will come up later.
Oh yeah.
Johnny, there's also like, not to feed into rumors or what have you, but there is talk that Johnny To may have been the director behind the film, and
A
Benny may
Spielberg
not have actually
poltergeist
been the director.
situation.
Yeah, exactly. It's that kind of situation. I've got nothing but good things to say about this movie, so I'm just gonna stop my part of it. Ethan, do you have anything you want to say about this movie? Because I'll go on.
Yeah, so how I found out about this film was I was going through I wanted to find films that were influenced by sort of city pop, whether that be Hong Kong city pop or Japanese city pop, because I love the music genre, and I was just wondering, has anybody like compiled a list of films that is like, if you like this music, you'll like these films, you know what I mean? And A Moment of Romance was on there, so I was like, all right, I'll put it on my watch list. Looks cool. It's a guy and a girl on a motorcycle, she's wearing a wedding dress. I don't know what's going on. And then you were like, hey, I got it on Blu-ray, and I was like, okay, I don't know anything about this, but let's dive in, let's dig it. And it's an awesome film. Oh my god, it's so
It's just cool.
I would have brought it up. Remember the Cool Movies episode we did with Aiden? I would have brought up this movie in Cool Movies. Like,
Yeah.
it's very similar to Drive, in terms of like, and this is what I'll admit, it's very in terms of like sort of male wish fulfillment. So I can like understand if someone would like not be like, because it's sort of like, and it's also sort of like the rebel character. It's the rebel meets like the innocent girl.
Yeah, it's your standard affair in that regard.
Yeah, and it's like you just gotta let go of like, all right, I know this story's been done 100 times, but if you focus on the craft and how they tell it, oh man, like you said, the score is phenomenal. Like I understand why this was put in that city pop list. The sets and the locations were beautiful with the lights, and like there's a scene that we were talking about this morning, Chris, that I just can't stop thinking about, when she's walking through that club later on in the film, in that club. She's just like, oh man, I want to be there right now. It's just like, it's such a treat for the eyes, the film. And it's got great fights, a great comedy too. There's this one character who is just,
oh my god,
he's just like
killing it.
Dude who lives on the streets and like cleans cars that are parked at a meter, but he was like so funny, and he's in the movie a lot, and he never like ceases to kill me.
Every scene he's in, he steals.
Yeah, it's Brandon. This is a really good film, and once you come pick up your Oscar movies from me, you gotta take that and give it a watch. I think you'll dig it.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah. One thing I do want to make note of. This is like a little like pamphlet kind of thing that came inside of or on the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
the movie pitches itself as a moment of romance features the action and violence reminiscent of Takashi Miike with the beauty of Wong Kar-wai, which I think now that I've seen
What a
it,
weird-
yeah, it does.
It's a
Yeah,
it's a
little out
crazy
there,
combo.
kind of zany.
Yeah.
And also, this movie, because it got the restoration, everything, it got, it came with some special features. And a notable special feature is visual essay by Asian cinema expert David Desser.
Wait,
Professor Desser. Yep. I just read it. It's there.
what?
Yeah.
He al-
David Desser. We love you,
Oh,
man.
He al-
man.
He also did the commentary for Ikaru on the Criterion Blu-ray.
Yeah.
For-
Guy, he knows his shit.
Wow. Our old professor from college who taught us the
Yep.
films of Wes Anderson and Karen Kusama we're finding him pop up in all sorts of media. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's
That-
hilarious.
oh,
I was
that-
just reading, I was like, there's no way I read that right. And
I
yeah,
don't-
sure enough, it is. It's him.
He did a commentary for Ikaru.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
man.
gotta watch that.
Imagine watching that guy talk through Ikaru.
Yeah, really, it's good.
You know?
You know.
And there he is.
Kurosawa really knew what he was doing with the
dying
swing
on the
set.
swing. He's just
Yeah.
dying on the swing.
All right.
Nobody knows this guy.
Well, we started talking about the action stuff, so I feel like naturally this is a great transition moment because we went from romance to romance action,
Yeah.
and now we're going to action. So let's just go with this. Brandon, favorite action movie from Hong Kong?
Heroic Trio.
Yeah. All right. All right.
Yeah.
Ethan's grumpy.
Ethan's a grumpy
We were supposed to
little
watch
boy.
this movie together, and y'all just watched it separately without me.
It was
I
on.
can't
It was
watch
on
it
the
now.
plane I was on.
It was, it was available. I didn't know if it was
Uh.
going to get taken off the Criterion channel.
Mm,
But really, it's like when we have been oversaturated with superhero action flicks, I think. And it's so nice to see a film that one isn't really necessarily based off of like a property, like
Yeah.
maybe myth and legend and stuff like that, but is able to like stylistically reflect the works of like a Sam Raimi early 2000s, late 90s Darkman sort of thing.
Very zany, kind of out there.
Right. And I don't think it always works with like its humor and the darkness like
Oh,
paired
no,
together. But like it definitely takes some zany swings, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
gotta respect it because I do care for all the characters in the film, and I do find this story at least very entertaining, if not.
Yeah. Holy
If-
Ethan, you hate children? This is the movie for you. You see
Yeah.
so many
What?
babies die in this movie.
Yeah,
Child death.
Hey, well,
Probably
don't
some
put
of the
those
highest
things on
countdown.
me. Yeah, he fucking likes that. He likes when babies get killed.
He does.
wait.
He's
Hey,
like
wait a minute.
he pushed a baby over at a Golden Road once.
What?
You don't remember?
That was you.
No, that was you. Why
No,
are you
that was
gaslighting?
you.
Remember, Chris? He did that. He pushed the kid
Yeah.
over.
What kid?
There was a kid at the Golden Road Brewery, and he pushed.
No,
him
that was
over.
Chris.
That was me.
That was actually Chris. That wasn't me or you.
Okay, so this is a movie for Chris.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Chris bodied
um,
that kid.
But the choreography here is kind of insane because, like,
It is.
we
the
talk a
wire
lot.
work's fantastic. Yeah.
We talk about how like Jackie Chan films are insane, but I feel like they feel very. I feel like they feel out of control, whereas here they're very in control. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's very choreographed and tight.
But it feels right, and it doesn't feel
Yeah.
cheap. Like the wire work, yes, it's obvious when there's wire work, but it's like that kind of plays into the charm of it being like a '90s mid-budget Hong Kong action film.
Oh yeah.
And it
absolutely.
knows that. It knows that.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
very, very good movie.
Yeah, very fun movie too. Yeah, Ethan, if you do ever get the chance, I'd love to watch this with you again. Yeah, it's a very fun movie. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It allows itself to kind of point out how stupid everything that's happening is. Maggie Cheung has this great bit with a motorcycle.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's great. She's awesome in this movie. They're all great in this movie.
Well,
Michelle
Step
Yeoh
on me.
kicks ass. All of them. Yeah.
should we just get into some Johnny Toe? Like make this the Johnny Toe hour? For
You
a
know what?
second?
Yeah,
Because-
since we're on Heroic Trio, why not?
because he has some of my all-time favorite Hong Kong films.
Oh yeah.
First, I'll start with one of my favorites, Throwdown. Oh my god,
Yep.
it's such a like just the definition of fun, you know, but not
Yeah.
fun in a way where it doesn't take itself seriously. You know, it takes itself seriously, but it just has so much fun with itself. You know,
Yeah.
um, they like, and even when it gets so crazy, it always has heart. Like the relationship between these characters who sort of come together, you know, um, and have to, you know, what do they say? Are they like saving that bar and like getting money for it?
Yeah. Yeah. And they all have their own little like
Their own
character
quirks.
flaws that they're
Yeah.
trying to overcome. Yeah.
And it's just great banter. The scene where they steal the money is so funny when they're at the arcade.
But it's also so like beautiful when they're running in the
Yeah.
streets at the end, and she's like, oh god,
Uh,
no, yeah, this is a
but
beautiful movie.
it's a judo movie. All of the martial
Yeah.
arts in this film are judo, and I love judo. So like, I haven't really seen a film besides you know, Kurosawa's judo films that he made like in the I think in the 40s. You know, but this is a judo action film. So the only moves are just like people throwing each other on the ground. That's why it's called Throwdown. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's a beautiful film. It's on Criterion. You gave me this. What was it for Christmas or something?
No, I
My
think it was your
birthday?
birthday.
A birthday? Yeah. And I loved it just by looking at the cover itself and then watching it. Just like I've never been like, my expectations were like exactly met. You know, when I watched it, I'm like, this is gonna be an awesome film. And I watched it, I'm like, oh, this was an awesome film. You know.
Mhm.
But yeah, Throwdown's great.
Yeah,
What do you think, Chris?
yeah. No, Throwdown is a lot of fun. I just felt like so like it's one of those movies where it's so light, you know, like, and even though they're dealing with some real stuff, you know, and there is
Yeah.
violence and whatnot, the movie doesn't make like the movie always keeps you as the audience like kind of lightly going through the story with the characters. You're not like gonna be deeply heartbroken or anything throughout the movie, but you feel like there's something very gratifying throughout this movie, especially since each of the characters are so lovable that you can kind of just hang out with them. It's almost kind of like a hangout movie
Yeah.
because they're all just like such chill people and they have their own goals, but they're striving towards them in like a pace that doesn't make you feel like it's like a straight action movie or anything.
Right.
It's probably and I mean this in a complimentary way, the chillest of Johnny To's movies, at least
Yeah.
as a director. He's
Yeah.
produced a lot of chill stuff, and that takes me into I think one of his heavier movies is called Drug War, which I also watched
Yep.
with you.
I
Ethan.
love Drug War.
Drug War tells a story about an undercover cop infiltrating a drug trade, basically. It's about, it kind of has this, like throughout the movie, you're always kind of like guessing like how far are they going to take this? And by the end, like you kind of don't really know which side you're on, because I think one thing I really admire about Johnny To as a filmmaker is that he's willing to talk about moral ambiguity and political espionage and shit like that. Because that's an important thing to talk about. And in this movie, by the end, you're kind of like grappling with, is it worse? Like, what's worse, the disorganized cruelty of the criminal underworld or the calculated dehumanization perpetuated by the
Police
powers
force.
that be?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you know, and that's what I like about Johnny To's films. There's almost kind of like a pervading sense of nihilism throughout a lot of them.
Yeah.
And you know that carries over to another film that I've seen of his called Election, which is about kind of an empty seat at the top of the triad food chain, proverbial food chain, is opened and someone has to fill it, which is a great commentary about systems of power and oppression and policing and whatnot. Since we're on the Johnny To kick, Ethan, why don't you tell me a little bit about Exiled? Because I have not seen
Because
it.
I was gonna bring up Exile, and because that interweaving nihilist, you know, um for, like, you know, theme that he has throughout his films. Because this film is about a group of friends. Well, Aiden talked about this on Stacked. If you remember, the film opens up with a group of friends coming together to go to this one guy's house, and two of them are there to protect him, and two of them are there to kill him. And it just like, because it's like two of them are hitmen, and then two of them are gangsters who like want to protect this guy because they're in the gang, you know. But they've all been friends for a long time, and it's just like it's just business, you know, that it's come to this. And you really get to like Johnny Toe really, like I said, he always has heart in his films, you know, so you really get to understand like the relationship between all of these men and their friendship, and why it's like such a tragic thing that this is happening. But one thing I do want to point out, which I told you about earlier, is just like, I've never seen a cinematographer use darkness so well in a film. By doing so much with so little, by shooting characters in the dark, where you can like it's a weird like paradox. You can like perfectly see them, but also can't see them at all because it's so dark, you know. And I watched this during the daytime. Like, it wasn't like, you know, when you're watching a movie during the day and you're like, oh fuck, I can't see anything that's happening in these like nighttime scenes, you know. That wasn't the case for me. Like, somehow they made it able that you could just perfectly see by like only lighting like certain pieces of like a character's face when they're talking, you know, so you can like see their emotions, but you can't see their full body and stuff like that. It's awesome. And then of course the action, it's a Johnny Toe film, you know. I don't think he's ever disappointed on that end, you know.
No, yeah, he knows his stuff with that.
Yeah, so that like, I would say he's up there. Like, when it comes to like, when I think of Hong Kong, you know, the Hong Kong movie scene, I feel like there's a big three. Do you feel like there's a big three?
Like, in terms of directors, or in terms of
in terms of directors, I think it's Wong Kar-wai, Johnny Toe, and then John Woo. Those are like the three that I think of. Unless you,
well, for me, the way I kind of imagine it is like not so much three directors, more like three genres that I think the region specializes in.
Yeah.
So I think there's one, and there's intertext between all of them, obviously, but romance. So you have your Wong Kar-wai, for example, for that, or your Benny Chan, yeah. And then you have your action. So you have your Jackie Chan, you have your John Woo, you might have your Johnny Toe. You know, he kind of breaches into drama as well there. And you know, Infernal Affairs, stuff like that. We'll probably get into that. And then you have your kind of zany comedy like Fat Choy Spirit, Shaolin Soccer, stuff like that. You know, and I know, and then I feel like there's this drama pervading over all three of them. Yeah, but that's kind of but I see what you're saying. The Hong Kong does have quite a number of prolific auteurs.
But then again, this is just like an outsider's view. Like, when I think of, you know, just like what we were talking about with Kurosawa, you know, I don't know like who's the praised directors there, but from an outsider's view, it feels like those are like the Spielberg, Scorsese, and let's see, who's the third? Who would be a third? Coppola, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
I guess, yeah.
Oh no! Here comes trouble.
Brandon got thrown down.
Did Brandon get beat up? Guys, Brandon, if you probably have noticed, Brandon's been gone for a while, and Chris and I have just been talking, but he's come back with toilet paper shoved up his nose. That can only mean one thing. Brandon, welcome back to the show.
Yeah.
What happened, man? What's up?
You look like shit. I was blowing my nose, and then I looked at the stuff in there, and it was orange.
Orange.
Yeah.
Orange. Not red.
Not like red. Not blood.
Not red, not yellow, orange.
Orange. How orange are we talking about?
Like Gatorade orange.
What?
Oh.
Bro, you're turning into that fucking LCL fluid from Evangelion. What the? Orange? Orange.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if anyone um, has any diagnosis for Brandon, leave that in the comments below. I'd be really curious
I
about
mean,
what
I'm
that
getting
is.
over. I'm getting over something,
But
but
what
this
makes
is.
your snot orange? What's
I
that
don't
something?
know. I don't
That's the
know.
thing. I want to know. Doctors, let us know in the comments below. I know a lot of
Yeah, to all
doctors
the
listen to this
doctors list.
show.
Yeah, yeah, doctors love Stacked podcast.
You never know.
Um,
Huh.
well, Ethan, while you were gone, Brandon, Ethan and I went through some Johnny Toe films. But I kind of want to, since we're kind of in that action kind of spectrum right now, why don't we start talking about John Woo? Because I think we've all seen his Hard Boiled Killer and Better Tomorrow
I
unofficial trilogy.
I've only seen Hard Boiled.
Oh, really? Brandon, have
Yeah.
you seen all three? Hard Boiled, The Killer, and A Better Tomorrow?
No, I've just seen the first two.
Okay. You were a lot warmer on Hard Boiled, weren't you?
I think Hard Boiled was better, just because I think it committed to what it was doing, and the action sequences were way better. I just think I'm not a fan of the noir that comes out of the East,
What?
especially Hong Kong. So, because like I didn't like Infernal Affairs, I didn't like The Killer. I did liked Hard Boiled a little bit. It was more. I like the zany, over the top nature. Like there's this maximalist. We talked about that with RR in like India, right? But there's like something maximalist about the films of Hong Kong, like Shaolin Soccer and Kung Fu Hustle, which
Yeah.
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah, Hong Kong is a very expressionistic and vibrant city, so I can imagine. Yeah, there would be a maximalist kind of movement going on in the arts. Yeah, I really enjoy Hard Boiled. I think it's so fun.
It's a good one.
Twist turns. It's a lot, and like, just look at that poster. If that doesn't sell you, I don't know what will. Isn't that hilarious?
Him holding the
Chow
baby.
Yun Fat, but yeah.
Fuck.
And yeah, it's just so much fun. John Woo has such a is John Woo really well known in the U.S.?
I think so. I think he's I'd say I think he's the most well known because he did U.S. action films
Face Off,
like Face Off and Mission Impossible.
and Mission
2.
Impossible 2. Fuck
Yeah.
that.
Mission Impossible 2.
I think he's one of the most well known.
Interesting. Yeah, because I when I was growing up, like my impression of John Woo, I mean, like I had known he had done some films for Hong Kong and was a filmmaker there, but I always knew him for like the kind of like he would go for shots of like the main character shooting, and then those doves will fly up behind them. That's kind of like a signature of his, doves flying during gunfire.
I've never noticed that. That's
start looking around. You'll start noticing that he loves doing that.
I like it.
Okay, well, why don't we switch gears over to probably the most famous person to ever come out of Hong Kong in the West. You know him. You might love him. Jackie Chan. We all know Jackie Chan. Guy has been around for a minute. He is. Oh man, where do we even begin with this? He got his start in filmmaking as like a background stuntman. For example, he was in Enter the Dragon, granted as like a lonely henchman that Bruce Lee elbows in the face, and actually did elbow Jackie in the face. And then kind of through there, he started making a name for himself as a very hardworking, determined stunt person, which eventually led to him getting cast in more roles, and then eventually directing his own work. And that's what really put him on the map, at least in Hong Kong scene in 1985, with Police Story, a movie that all three of us have seen. The first Police Story, I think, is one of the great action films in cinema history.
Yeah.
The scale of it, it's not like, the world's ending or like buildings are collapsing, but it's just that opening rush down that hill with cars destroying an entire village that they built purely for this film. Everything from that to Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan chasing down a bus with nothing. Okay, alrighty. Anyway,
Whoa. Sorry.
Anyway, yeah, he does a lot of crazy fucking shit in this movie. Racing down after a bus with only an umbrella. There's an amazing fight in a shopping mall towards the end, which ends with probably the most dangerous stunt he's ever done in his entire career, sliding down like a 60-foot pole, which gave him third-degree burns on his hands and broke his part of his vertebrae when he landed at the bottom. Yeah, this dude's a madman. But he's gone around. He made his big introduction to the West with Rumble in the Bronx in 1995, and then a few years later became almost like a household name in America with probably one of my favorite comedies ever made, Rush Hour, which I still stand by. I still deeply stand by that movie, even though yes, it is certainly offensive and may not apply to the sensibilities of modern day culture. I also do think that Rush Hour is a deeply moving image of Black and Asian solidarity, especially in a time like that where it wasn't common that you would see two leads of different races, let alone those two races, in a Hollywood film and be a huge hit in the way it was. This Rush Hour 1 and Rush Hour 2, we don't really talk about the third one, but Rush Hour 1 and Rush Hour 2 are fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah. What is your guys? What are your guys' favorite Jackie Chan movies? Let's start with you, Brandon.
Not a really big fan of Jackie Chan, but The Legend of the Dragon Master was probably my favorite.
Okay, that's fair. That's a fun one too. No, yeah, that's a cool.
I just think it's
gimmick.
It's a great it's a great idea to like have a character who is essentially like getting better at drunk.
I love
and getting better at a skill.
True. Legend of the Drunken Master is good. I've been on a big Jackie Chan watch this year because I love him. Can't get enough of him. Police Story, like you said, Chris, that one's probably his magnum opus. I think that's the one I'll always think of him by. But of course, there's so many other good ones. I mean, Rumble in the Bronx, it's like a half. It was produced by a Hong Kong production company, but made in America. But I still count it, I think it's great. Police Story 3, Super Cop, Meet the Cop Who Can't Be Stopped, with Michelle Yeoh. That one has fantastic action sequences. What else are we looking at here? Maybe the ones that we've been watching recently haven't been as good, like First Strike.
First Strike was not that hot, yeah.
Shanghai Noon. That's not a Hong Kong film though. Police Story 2 is good. Police Story 2 is good, but it's not as good as the 1 and 3. But of just the thing that makes Jackie so phenomenal is his ability to fuse high choreographed action, martial arts action, with physical comedy. That sort of was like. That sort of made the 20s and 30s of comedy, that he's going all the way back to like Charlie Chaplin and Harold Lloyd and stuff like that. In the way he like gets hurt, expresses stuff, falls into all these coincidences, No one has ever done it like him, and no one ever will, I don't think. He's just like, say what you will about him as a person,
definitely.
But he is just one of the best entertainers I think that has ever lived, just because he's his way of filmmaking is so pleasing to all sorts of types of entertainment, whether it be action, comedy, there's also some romance in his films, it's great. He's awesome.
He's done a bunch of like these other like kind of B movies I'm talking like Spy Next Door. Uh, I'm talking The Medallion, The Nice Guy, Hidden Strike that came out recently.
Oh yeah, I want to
Skip
watch that.
Trace with Johnny Knoxville. That's kind of
Yeah,
crazy that exists. Also, before we move on from Jackie Chan, just real quick, great voice actor.
yeah. He's
Kung
great
Fu
in Turtles.
Panda, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What else is he in? He's also in. Oh, he's also in the Lego Ninjago movie,
Oh yeah,
which I watched with Brandon in theaters. That was great. Um, yeah, yeah, Jackie Chan. He's the guy. Brandon, do you have a movie you want to bring up that
yeah.
hasn't been discussed yet?
Let me look at my list.
We're encroaching on an hour here, so we can start going. To our...
Raise the Red
Yeah.
Lantern. Good movie.
Yeah, that is a China
Wait.
and Hong Kong collaboration.
Don't you
I-
mean?
yeah, I know that movie by another name. What is that? What is
who
that
was it
name,
that's-
Frank?
I don't
Cody,
remember it.
come on in.
No.
I don't know.
But are you sure? I don't know.
All right.
It doesn't
All
matter.
right.
But it's a good movie. It's a great drama about
It is.
fitting into a society that is traditional, but trying to also break out of it with the types of female characters that are in it. They're strong
Yeah.
female characters, even though they're in a really rigid class system. Also, Shaolin Soccer and Kung Fu Hustle. I know I mentioned
Oh.
them earlier, but I really enjoyed
definitely.
the energy and
Oh.
maximalism of those films so much. It
Oh,
was so
yeah.
fun.
Stephen Chow's great.
crazy man.
He's fantastic. He is honestly, I think, one of the better comedy directors of our time. I wish he made more movies. There's a movie that I've been wanting to show you guys, and we talked about it once, about food movies. I talked about God of Cookery.
Yes.
That movie's so funny.
I need to
It's
see
like
that movie.
it's
I
like
need it.
how do I put this? It's like Ethan. Imagine the zaniness of Fat Choice Spirit with like Ratatouille as like a subject.
I need that so
Um,
bad.
Yeah, but no, Stephen Chow's the man. He really knows his stuff. Kung Fu Hustle, I think, is one of the best comedy films, period. But also, probably the best comedy film to come out of Hong Kong. I just mentioned this movie, Fat Choice Spirit.
Yeah.
I showed it to Ethan. It's like this mahjong movie.
Another
Andy
Johnny
Lau
Toe that we
plays
missed. We should have talked about.
Another
this.
Johnny Toe.
Talked
Yeah,
about him.
did he direct or did he produce?
I think he co-directed.
Okay, yeah, I think he might have co-directed.
Yeah, with Wake
Yeah,
Up
this
Fire.
movie's Fat Choice. Yeah, the Fat Choice Spirit is a lot of fun. Andy Lau plays this character who's like, we find out throughout the movie how this happened, but he is given this almost like kind of supernatural talent with mahjong. Like he cannot help but win, but then the movie is also about like being humble and learning to prioritize the things that mean the most to you. You know, it's your standard affair with this kind of shit, but it is a very fun movie. There's a whole sequence that is a parody of Chungking Express.
Yep.
The cleaning scene, which is so much fun. Yeah, I think this movie's a great time. I would recommend it to anyone.
Yes.
Speaking of movies to recommend people, Brandon, I have another Hong Kong movie to recommend you. You're a Bond guy. I want you to watch From Beijing with Love.
From Beijing with, is it a parody?
It is a dead on parody of From Russia with Love.
Well, I love From Russia with
Yeah.
Love. I like
Yeah, it's
65% of the Bond movies, but I own them all, so
It's and like the thing about that makes this movie so fun, on top of the
Why?
fact that it is like a parody of that,
what?
is that it's zany as hell. Like the movie brings in like almost like a heroic trio kind of quality to it. There's a character who literally launches their fist out of their arm and like it flies like a rocket and punches someone.
Whoa.
Metal Gear shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a Metal Gear 5.
We're kind of getting towards the hour mark here. Are
I
there
wanna
any movies
talk
that you guys
about
want to get in here?
That-
Yeah.
I want to talk one that neither of you two have seen.
All right, hit it.
All right, here's my pitch for this movie. Legend of the Drunken Master meets Scooby Doo. It's called Encounters of the Spooky Kind, and
Sounds like an alien movie.
no, it's a ghost movie, and it's about this guy who's just like,
Whoa, what is this?
He's just like this
Whoa.
this fat guy who's just like really good at fighting and he fears nothing. Um, and then he has to like fight ghosts
okay.
and zombies and stuff, and it is an insane film about just like this guy, like this goofy schlubby
It's
guy.
Sammo Hung.
Yeah, who has to just fight all of these like spirits, all these like spirits and zombies and vampires and stuff. And it's just like it's one of the most insane movies I've ever seen, and
Yeah.
one of the best. Oh my god, one of the best endings. It's so. Okay. I gotta find a way to watch this movie with you guys because I want to see your reaction to the ending.
And Halloween's coming up, so this would be great.
Yeah, this would be a good Halloween watch. Honestly, I wonder if I could find this on DVD or something. But yeah, great film.
If anyone listening has played or heard of the game Sleeping Dogs, there's like a DLC they did where you fight ghosts, and I think they loosely based it off this movie. Because I remember seeing a still from it a while ago, and I think that's where I'm associating it.
Oh, really?
But
that's crazy.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's a cool pull, Ethan. I wouldn't have
never heard of it.
You even thought
Put
of
it.
it. Yeah,
Put
but
it
it does
on
look like a lot of fun.
Oh, it's on Criterion. Highly recommend. But yeah, I think. Let's see. Besides that, I mean, Fallen Angels. We've talked about that at the end of the show.
Yeah.
Happy Together, another really good Wong Kar-wai film. Shaolin Soccer, Kung Fu Hustle, Razor Lantern, As Tears Go By is really good.
Yeah.
Days of Being Wild. I'm just now naming Wong Kar-wai films. Yeah, I think that's all I got.
I have a few to throw out there, but Brandon, do you have any last things, or you think you're pretty clear here? Okay. Cool. Okay, well, the last things that I want to throw out there is Anne Hui as a director. Frankly, there are not very many prolific female directors in Hong Kong. I blame the industry for not giving them much representation. However, from the few that I have come across, the one that really stands out to me is Anne Hui. She is like in her own right, like almost like an Agnes Varda for. Like what Agnes Varda was for French New Wave, Anne Hui is for Hong Kong. Anne Hui directed this movie called Boat People, which I've talked about briefly in previous episodes. It's a very political movie about Hong Kong, but she frames it in relation to Vietnam during the 60s, I believe the 60s. She also made this wonderful down-to-earth drama starring Andy Lau called A Simple Life. I really recommend that. Ethan and I have also seen another horror movie produced in Hong Kong called The Eye.
I forgot about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that movie's scary as shit.
There's
an elevator scene. I will never. Yeah.
The elevator, the hospital.
Yeah. A couple last ones. I just because we're in the political talk. 10 years. Joshua, Teenager versus Superpower. Revolution of Our Times.
Yeah.
And a new one that's pretty hard to access, but I'm one of the fortunate folk that managed to snag a Blu-ray of it. Blue Island. Highly recommend that. The last thing I want to throw out is a couple of the great international collaborations between Hong Kong and other countries. Obviously, Hong Kong in recent years has not been, as prolific of a locale just because of filming restrictions and whatnot, and that's a whole can of worms to open. But some of my favorite collaborations that they've done around the world. Some of them are just like funding, some of them producing, and some of them just filming. Rush Hour, obviously, that's a big one. Ethan, you know the actor Louis Koo? He was in Drug War. He's in Fat Troy Spirit as the brother. Sound familiar at all? Louiskoo.
Yes, I know his face.
He helped to fund Mitchell's versus the Machines.
Huh?
I don't know. He struck a deal with Netflix. I don't know. I googled it. I saw Mitchell's on the letterbox like in Hong Kong region. I was like, but then I googled it.
I don't trust letterboxes things about where.
But dude, Google Louis Koo and Mitchell's versus the Machines.
Like, why is the Revenant there?
Letterbox. It's I
favorite Hong Kong film, The Revenant.
I can understand like Blade Runner because they take influence and that there's partly that. A City of Sadness is a great collaboration between Hong Kong and Taiwan. I think that movie represents both of those countries and their relationship to China very well. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, The Dark Knight.
Scary stories
getting
to
into
tell in the
just-
dark. What?
Yeah, now we're just talking about places that.
Now
filmed
You
in
See
Hong
Me.
Kong.
Yeah, see, I think it's
Now You
I
See
think it's
Me.
something that's like filmed or like there's an actor
I've seen it.
from Hong
Yeah.
Kong or something. I think that's how Letterboxd includes it. So it just makes it a little messy. I don't know.
Yeah.
All
But
right.
either way, that's pretty much all I've got as well.
Yeah. So I hope you all learned something about Hong Kong and its prolific
Hong
film
Kong?
industry there. Hong Kong. Should I? I
Oh,
think I
if-
can legally
oh.
end this episode with that song.
Maybe you can. Give it a shot. But for anyone listening, search up Hong Kong by YUNO, you know, Miles. You'll thank me later.
And remember, Chris is the one who found the song, not me. Not little white me. This is Chris. All right. Brandon. Okay, Brandon, are you okay? Are you feeling all right?
Yeah.
Okay. I hope you're doing all right. You've been quiet
Me
this
too.
episode, so I hope you feel better. I know you're a little sick. Now he's fallen to the floor. Hope your snot turns green. Green
That's
like
worse.
the mighty oak.
That's worse.
What do you mean?
Yeah. Green snot is worse than yellow.
I would say it's better than Gatorade Orange. I don't know. I hope it's clear then. That's the healthiest one, right?
We'll see what happens.
Okay.
And so
You
we
know,
shall.
that'll be the cliffhanger. Next episode is Stacked. Let's see if Brandon,
Did Brandon
is
live?
alive. Let's see if he lives. Oh man, if he
Lazy.
dies, I'm never gonna upload this episode. Anyways, thank you all so much for listening.
You have my
Um,
permission.
And who made this song? Who made this song?
You know Miles.
You know, Miles. Take it away.
You say I'm out of town, I'm in Hong Kong. I'm just trying to get this cash in Hong Kong. I don't care about fight, I'm in Hong Kong. Come and looking for me, I'm in Hong Kong.